Well, hello. Ah, this is the first video I will have made by myself for a few days. Well, let me just do the title and then we'll talk about it. How Ron feels about his Swissindo conversations. For the first time since Ron began making daily videos in January 2011, there have been consecutive conversation with others for his daily video, 4 in a row. These span the globe: Indonesia, Australia, Greece, and Austria. Will the revelation that Mr. Sino believes Ron was his father and sees him as one of the delegation leaders under God go to his head? What about all the naysayers who have come out of the woodwork trying to discount Swissindo as a fraud and other accusations? How does Ron feel about that? This is a video where Ron talks candidly about his own thoughts and feelings, hopes and fears in regard to the promises of Swissindo, Kingdom of God, Sky, Earth. I referred to myself in the third person like I'm talking about somebody else or somebody else wrote the blurb, but I didn't want to be using I in there, so I just used the name I was given when I was born. And indeed, 4 days in a row, we've had conversations with others, as I said in the blurb, starting with Mr. Sino himself. And he actually contacted me 24 hours before we did the video. I mean, I didn't realize he was responding to a comment that I made in one of my videos, because he does watch my videos. They do in Indonesia, which makes me feel somewhat good, I have to admit. And he tried to contact me on Skype, but if I don't have something prearranged, I don't know about it. If somebody sends me a message on Skype, I'm not going to see it unless they tell me it's there, because I don't go looking for messages on Skype unless it's something, again, that I've prearranged. But he actually was trying to reach me from Indonesia 24 hours before we did the conversation. And then, of course, the same day I did the conversation with Stuart, but it didn't go up. I skipped a day because gave Aristo his normal time, recorded on Friday and aired on Saturday. And then, of course, I finished up with Karen from Austria. And the comments made in those conversations, some of them really triggered a lot of emotion for me, a lot of introspection, a lot of thought, deep thought. And some of the comments that people made, I mean, someone has gone so far as to show Indonesian television pointing out that Mr. Sino is a fraud and that there are many fraudsters in Indonesia, mostly operating out of Western Java. I guess that's where Cimarron is in Western Java. Although it's the eastern part of the western part of the island, or more or less central, I would say. But anyway, be that as it may, I would expect that no matter what, anybody that comes along that claims to have the wealth that Mr. Sino does is going to draw attention. And Mr. Sino, from what I've observed and heard, is much more open than the delegation is that has grown up around him, that he asked for and received. There's been a lot of secrecy in the delegation, and I think that's been one of the single biggest problems with the whole thing. I understand the reasoning, because different individuals that are on the delegation have had legal issues that they've been facing, threats in their families, threats to their home, threats of various types, and have been trying to resolve and find remedy for them. And it would be putting them out on a limb to be made public beforehand. So I understand the logic and the reasoning behind people wanting to work sort of underground and behind the scenes. However, I've always been one that has used my real name. I've not hidden behind a false name. Paradox Man is a nickname, a label that I was given a long time ago, back in the 1980s, and when the very first email address I ever had was Paradox Man, and that's just been a nickname for a very long time. I've never hidden, though, the fact that my real name that I was born with is Ron Van Dyke, or Ronald Van Dyke. And I was actually a junior when I was born, but when my dad died, I stopped using the junior because there was no need for it anymore. But the name and titles and all that stuff really doesn't matter. It's just that I'm here in this lifetime living this life. But a lot of things were triggered. Past life stuff. Now, I've had some past life recollections. And I've met people that I felt like I was connected to them in past lives, or felt like I knew them somehow. I didn't know how. And as I shared in the video with Karin yesterday, that's airing today, there's been times that I've read about certain people and I feel a resonance toward them, like the Apostle Paul, Jeremiah, and Thomas Jefferson are three that I actually named in that video. And there's probably been others, but those came to mind in that time. There was nothing pre-planned and pre-arranged in none of my videos, except for the little blurb that you hear in the title. Nothing is pre-planned. Everything is spontaneous, off the cuff, from the heart, and in the moment. And that's just the way that I do my videos. And except for the early videos where I did read them, I've been doing them this way for all but maybe the first month. I'd have to go back and look, but I believe it was fairly early on that I just started speaking from my heart and not having to try to pre-plan everything. But the idea that Mr. Sino sees me as his father is interesting. I am not attached to it one way or another. I do feel a resonance with Mr. Sino based on what I know about him. I haven't met him face to face yet. I have seen him on the one conference call that we had. And of course, I had the conversation with him, some of which I understood and some of which I didn't understand. But the man seems to have a heart for the people. And that's why I resonate with him. Now, if he's a fraud, and it proves to be nothing but blowing wind in the air, which is nothing but air, in other words, then that will be what comes out of it. But I've felt a resonance, and that's what I go by. I've learned to trust my feelings more than my thoughts, even more than my rationality. Logic and reason are fear. I was taught that early on in the workshops back in 1994 when I first started doing them in January 1994, 20 years ago. I was taught that logic and reason are fear. And when you move from the heart doesn't lie. If you go by your feelings, the feelings of your heart, that doesn't lie. The head will lie to you, but the heart won't. And that's a principle that I've gone by for a long time. Now, why do I believe Mr. Sino? First of all, I've looked for a long time for a remedy to the criminality of the world. That's the truth. When I realized in 2001 that our government was a criminal enterprise that would go so far as to blow up buildings with thousands of people inside the buildings, and then blame it on somebody else and mastermind the 9/11 scenario. That finally dawned on me, and then I began to learn more and more and more about all of the things in our culture that are just total lies. Everything, the medical profession, almost totally false stuff. The legal profession, just built on fabrications. The whole financial world built on fabrications. Mainstream media, a lying institution for the purpose of propaganda. The education system, it just teaches falsehoods. as truth. And it brainwashes the culture brainwashes the entire human society. No wonder we are so destructive. We've been cut off from our source within ourselves, although we're not really cut off, but it appears to be because everything has been programmed to subvert that. So I learned a lot of things. I learned from Stuart how to say Mr. Sino's real name. And the reason he was called Mr. Sino is because it's easier to say than his really long Indonesian name or Javanese name or whatever. I mean, I'd have to really struggle to try to say the whole thing. Maybe someday I'll be able to, but that day is not today. But I really appreciated that, hearing that from Stuart. And I really appreciated what Aristo said about his feeling that Mr. Sino comes from a long line of mystics, or he didn't say mystics, he said shamans, and even Karin made reference to the fact that he's probably more of a Taoist. I think that was Karin that said that, or maybe it was Aristo. I'm not sure. But in any case, he's an interesting man, and until something is proven otherwise, I'm going to go with the best plan that I know about, and that is the Swissindo God Sky Earth plan. It built on the OPPT. The OPPT people are not involved in Swissindo, the ones that started OPPT and the ones that are seen as the current leaders, with, along with Heather and that group that now is camping out in northern Africa in Morocco. Lots of interesting dynamics. I don't have the answers, and I don't claim to. I'm following my heart, and we're creating together. Me and a whole bunch of other visionaries are doing our best to create a system that works for everybody. And I want to tell you something about Ron. If it's proven that it's not what they said, and I believe we will know within a month, if this thing doesn't happen, that we end up having that meeting that's being talked about in March. If that doesn't happen, that'll be the first time that an actual date was given. But we were given a date back in, or not a date, but a period of time back in September last year, and then it was supposed to be a month delayed, and then another month delayed, and then now it's March already. So a whole month passed from the time that it was supposed to happen till it's now said to happen again. But if that doesn't happen, that's going to be a loud clarion call that maybe something is going on behind the scenes that just isn't right. Now we know. Look, if Swissindo accomplished blessing humanity with removing the limitation of finance, so that any worthwhile project that needed funding would be able to get funding, and all of the inventions and technologies that have been invented and squashed by the powers that have wanted to keep on controlling the world, if those were all of a sudden released, it would change everything, and the people that have been in control would no longer be in control. And you don't think that some of them would fight tooth and nail and do every trick imaginable to try to subvert a plan that would put them out of power and probably strip them of some of their ill-gotten gains? You better believe they'd do everything in their power, including spreading all sorts of lies. So we don't know what the truth is. The truth now, I mean, for me, truth is going to be whatever happens. That's truth, because I've experienced it. If I haven't experienced it, it's in the realm of possibility. It's in the realm of maybe a promise or a hope or a dream. But it's not reality until it manifests. Reality is the manifestation of a thing, not the promise of some future manifestation. But what manifests in the now, that's reality. That's reality. That's the today. That's the now. Here and now. Time and place. And I've been reading an article, David Wilcock's recent article, that said time and place are an illusion. There's no such thing as time, and there's no such thing as location. I think it's bullshit, but supposedly there's scientific evidence to it. I haven't finished the article. I only read the first page, and I didn't read the second page yet. But in any case, we're at an interesting time frame. And I had a lot more thoughts come up over the past 4 days as I listened to these conversations that I've had with others. And I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in any title, whether I'm supposed to be a leader along with Karin and Mr. Sino, and we're the leaders under God. Sure, I want the same thing that I believe Karin wants, and the same thing that I understand Mr. Sino wants. And Mr. Sino being a king, that doesn't bother me at all. In fact, a bridge has got to start with where things are. And I'm about building bridges, and so is Karin, and I believe so is Mr. Sino. It has to start with where things are, which is the rule of kings. Okay, and if he has the lineage to give him the actual authority to be the M1, to be the controller of currency, and to say where the money is supposed to go, and he's wanting to use it on behalf of the people, I'm in his ballpark. I'm playing that game until that game can't be played anymore. I'm going to give it everything I have, with all of my heart, with all of my mind, with all of my body and soul. I'm going to go for it because I want a world that works for everybody. Now, if it proves that some of these people that are claiming it's all a fraud and everything, if that's what happens and that's what comes out as the reality, well, not only will I bail, I think that 80 or 90% of the delegation that has been formed around this thing would also bail. We came in to help humanity, not to betray humanity, not to set up a system that's going to further the enslavement of people. And yes, ultimately, we're not going to need hierarchy because we're all going to be kings and queens, and it's going to be totally meaningless, which it really is anyway. Titles and names and all those things, they're meaningless. We are who we are, what we are, how we are. We are this. We are this. And we're becoming that, whatever that is. And we're building the bridge from this here now to that there then. And it's all happening right now. Anyway, I'm probably going to talk more about some of these things in the days ahead. I'm excited. I'm apprehensive. I'm disappointed that some people still that I thought would get it don't. I feel a little bit bad that many of my friends, I feel like they look at me like I'm crazy sometimes. And yes, that bothers me. Should I care what other people think? Probably not, but I do because I'm human and I don't throw away my humanity. I speak my truth. I live my truth to the best of my ability. I don't always measure up to even my own ideals and my own expectations, but I do the best that I can. And I thank you for listening, and please, I ask you with all of my heart, keep an open mind with these things. We don't have the answers. We're creating them. We're creating the solutions. We're creating the world that we're going to be living in, and our children and our grandchildren will grow up in. We're building these things that are going to change humanity, and we want a world where there's no more fraud and all this corruption, at least not where there's fraud and corruption that are in control of the whole system of communication, of education, of media, etc. Everything is inside out and upside down and ass backwards. We don't want that anymore. I don't want that anymore, and I will do everything in my power to move us into a world that is better for everyone, except for those people that still want to control others and break the universal law of do no harm and of don't violate the free will of another. Anyway, I'm going to quit for now. Thank you for listening. Namaste.